Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this press conference to present the preliminary statement of findings and conclusions from the election observation mission sent by the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights for the second round of the mayoral elections here in Ukraine. Presenting the statement here today, as well as then later answering questions from the media about that statement, are Tana de Zulueta, the head of the ODIHR Election Observation Mission, and Thomas Bosrup, who's the deputy head of the mission. As I mentioned, we will have time for questions from the media after the presentation, the initial statements. Translation simultaneous is available. I see many of you have the headsets already. If you do need one, though, translation's available with English on the first channel, Ukrainian on the second, and Russian on the third. And all that information given, I'll hand the floor to Tana to present the statement.
Thank you, Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for coming. As you are aware, our mission is here at the invitation of the Foreign Ministry of Ukraine, whom we thank for the collaboration and assistance given. Besides our core team here in Kiev, consisting of 16 members, including myself, Mr. Bosrup, my deputy, 52 long-term observers remained in the country after the first round of voting to observe in 26 localities. Altogether, we were able to observe these elections with 320 observers from 44 countries, including 240 short-term observers. This observation was carried out in over 1,100 polling stations out of 5,000. The counting was observed in 125 polling stations across the country, and the tabulation process was observed in over 67 out of 99 territorial election commissions so far. I'd also like to thank the other authorities in Ukraine for assistance given, and specifically the Central Election Commission for cooperation and collaboration throughout our stay since the 9th September. The observers ourselves wish also to express our appreciation to the OSCE Project Coordinator's Office in Ukraine, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, and the embassies and international organizations accredited here, some of whom also joined our mission. I'd like to also tell you that though most members of this mission will be leaving the country on the 28th of November, as you are aware, the President has signed a special law for elections to be held in Mariupol and Krasnoyarsk, and some members of our mission will remain, and some long-term observers as well, to observe these elections on the 29th of November. I also will remain. As for the 25 October elections, we were able to make a positive assessment, indeed very positive assessment, of the conduct of yesterday's vote. Where tabulation process is still ongoing, our observers are still deployed. But we can already say, on the basis of our observers' reports, that dedicated and capable polling staff organized voting in a commendable manner. The OSCE ODIHR observers assessed voting procedures as good or very good in 99% of cases observed. As I mentioned, this is positive. OSCE EOM observers also assessed opening and closing in polling stations and rated it positively. Transparency was overall ensured, and observers could follow procedures without restrictions in almost all polling stations observed. Tabulation was assessed slightly less positively. Candidate representatives, citizen observers were present in large numbers during the process. Our overall assessment, however, as you know, is also based on our observation of the campaign, the legal framework, the conduct of the election administration, and the media. On the basis of our observation of all these aspects of the process, we can say that the preparations for the second round of voting were affected by the protracted tabulation process of the previous 25 October election results, which went beyond legal deadlines, as well as the high turnover of election commission members. These problems fostered some distrust among stakeholders in the election administration. Candidates were able to campaign freely and without due restrictions, though campaign activities between the two rounds were limited. They took place, however, in a calm environment. The campaign was visibly influenced by powerful business interests. And on the question of the role of money in this election, I think it's worth noting that we observed that money impacted the conduct of the media as well as other aspects of the process. As to the media, which we continued to monitor, have been monitoring since the 12th of September, we can say that in this round of election, initially, abundant reporting on the arrests of political figures and their alleged involvement in unlawful activities eclipsed other campaign aspects, reducing the information available to voters on the election. The National Television and Radio Broadcasting Council remained largely passive and were unable to establish a level playing field prior to the runoffs. On the basis of our monitoring, the results of which will be published in our final report, we can already note that similarly to the 25 October elections, Bloc Petro Poroshenko Solidarność and opposition bloc candidates were granted most of the airtime in broadcasters' election-related coverage. We monitored the courts and their dealing with complaints and appeals, of which there were a high number. Most of them, however, were rejected, either on motives of substance or on technical grounds. We will continue to monitor this aspect of the process and the CEC's handling of complaints until we leave the country, until our legal analyst leaves the country on 28th November. As for I think that actually is as much as you would like to hear from me, but I will be glad to answer your questions.
Yes, so we do have time for questions here now from the media. If you please would just raise your hand if you have a question. We'll have a microphone brought to you. And just before asking your question, if you could please give your name and the media outlet which you represent.
Доброго дня, п'ятий канал. Уточніть, будь ласка, можливо, конкретніше, які порушення були зафіксовані і в яких містах найбільше було таких порушень? Тобто якісь приклади конкретних порушень, які зафіксували ви?
I think it would be premature, but actually, in our observation so far, we noted a very small number of problems. Only one complaint was filed in our observers' presence.
Егор Логинов, телеканал Интер. Скажите, пожалуйста, вот наиболее напряженная ситуация, одна из самых напряженных, была в Днепропетровске. Какова там ситуация? Там была информация о том, что там были проблемы с городским избиркомом, что резко поменяли в последний день перед выборами практически всех членов городской избирательной комиссии. Правда ли это и как разрешилась эта ситуация? Были либо какие-то жалобы по этому поводу? Спасибо.
Извините, это была проблема с переводом. Вы не можете просто еще раз
I'm
спросить?
afraid that I probably only heard the second half of your question. You were asking me about complaints in Dnepropetrovsk, is that correct?
По поводу выборов в Днепропетровске, была ли у вас информация о том, что там в последний день перед выборами резко поменяли многих членов избирательной комиссии? И какие выводы вы сделали из этого? Правда ли это или как?
Yes, we followed events in the territorial election commissions. Our observers were present and have been reporting on the changes, which were some changes which were officially made. Our observers are still in the Territorial Election Commission waiting for the completion of tabulation, and we will be able to report when the process is completed.
The changing of the members of the
I answered that question. I said that our observers were able to report on, there was a request to change the membership of the Territorial Election Commission. Some of this was confirmed by the Central Election Commission, some not.
Виктория Светлова, издание «Политека». Скажите, пожалуйста, как вы оцениваете новую избирательную систему, которая впервые в Украине была применена на этих местных выборах? Ее называют, с одной стороны, очень близкой к европейской модели, с другой стороны, говорят о ряде недостатков, о том, что это нельзя назвать классическими открытыми списками и так далее. Ну и вот по сравнению с прошлыми выборами, которые проводились по смешанной системе, закрытые партийные списки и мажоритарные округа, видите ли вы позитивные изменения к лучшему на этих выборах? Спасибо.
We don't, there are no international standards on which election system is best. Each country chooses what works best for them. We have very different systems within the OSCE. However, already in our report on the first round of voting, the election for councillors, we make some comments on the legal framework and on the new law in particular, and we comment on this further in our latest statement of preliminary findings and conclusions. Regarding the efficacy of the law in guaranteeing a faithful reflection of voters' will. As to the mayoral elections, these were conducted in one new aspect under a new law for the second round, which was introduced. And I think it's worth noting that for the second round, in some localities, there was a very high turnout, and in some places, a reversal of the initial results, and that these appear to prove the importance of the second round of voting.
So, any further questions this afternoon? Just raise your hand if we do. All right then. Well, again, thank you for being with us here this afternoon. You'll find on your way out today On the table, the one you passed on your way in, are copies of the preliminary statement in all 3 languages we've used today, as well as of the press release from today's event. And aside from that, I wish you all a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.